Our annual Q&A webinar is one of our most popular programs because it's all about you. You come with questions and you leave with answers. We come prepared for the webinar with a few slides to illustrate concepts, but we just tackle questions live as they come in. It's actually kind of fun to see what kind of concerns are on the minds of our clients and how one question often leads to another. So listen in to hear the kind of general reserve study questions that we address at the start of the webinar. See if they are the same questions that you have, or if you can anticipate the answers that we give. So Paige, start us off with first question today, reserve study general issues. How can we help?
All right, let's dive in. Are there typical engineering or construction qualifications one should expect a reserve analyst to have?
That's a great question, and it points out a common misconception. Most reserve study providers are budget experts. They're not engineers or architects, and that's by nature of what we're trying to accomplish. A reserve study is a budget study and a cash flow analysis for the association. Engineering or architectural report is typically a structural investigation looking at potential building problems. They skip over all the normal cyclical projects at an association, the things that basically drive a reserve study: painting cycles, recarpeting, asphalt seal coating, tree trimming, all those kinds of things. Those are common reserve study elements, whereas the engineering analysis is going to look for structural considerations, a deteriorating balcony or something like that. So what to look for is not the person's engineering or architectural background. What you should be looking for is a reserve study credential. And so look for someone with an RS or PRA behind their name. It's reserve specialist or professional reserve analyst. I'm an RS, and Derek, I believe you are both an RS and a PRA, right?
Yeah, Robert, that's correct. And I just would like to add that a lot of my continuing education for both those designations has a lot to do with providing budget and cash flow analysis for our client base. Whereas like an architect or an engineer, they're more geared towards structural investigation or destructive testing of a certain item at a property or a building.
All right, next question. What is the average cost of a reserve study?
That's a good question. I've got a slide here that will help me illustrate that. It's this one here. There's three types of reserve studies you can obtain, both driven or all three driven by National Reserve Study standards. Anytime you see this seal on one of our charts, it indicates that it's part of National Reserve Study standards. A full reserve study generally only has to be done once, and I'll actually move to the next slide. That one is often in the range of 1% of an association's total budget. Then there's a with site visit update and a no site visit update. A with site visit update is a good thing to do every few years, and the no site visit is in the years even in between the with site visit update. We'll probably answer some of your questions in the next 45 minutes, saying that it's good to get regular updates, if not annual updates. That helps keep your association on track, but that's an answer to a question: how much do they cost? Full is going to cost about 1% of your annual budget. The with site visit is maybe 50 to 80% of that initial reserve study, and the no site visit is very inexpensive, often just a few $100s.
All right, building off of that, what are the requirements for yearly updates, if there are any?
Different states have different requirements. Most of my practice is done right here in California, and the requirement here is that an association completes an with site visit reserve study every 3 years. But there's also a requirement to do an annual reserve disclosure, and you really can't do that disclosure without getting an updated reserve study. So in California, most associations, I would say at least 80% of the associations, are doing annual reserve studies each and every year.
And again, they're mostly the inexpensive with site visit and no site visit updates.
All right. What is the biggest mistake a board can make regarding not doing a reserve study?
Let me start with that. I think boards quickly see a reserve study and they see a 20 or 30-year plan and they think, oh, that's great. We've done that. Talk to you in 20 years. And they don't appreciate that a reserve study is like a banana or an avocado in that it is very perishable. The observations we make, the bank balance that you provide us, the economic environment in which we prepare the reserve study, that changes from year to year to year. And I would say one of the biggest mistakes they make is just failing to understand that it's very perishable information. Our recommendation is going to change each year depending on the situation and at the client.
Robert, oftentimes I get clients coming to me or prospective clients coming to me and they say, hey, we're 20 years old now and we've never done a reserve study. And I want to just pull out my hair.
I was about to reach myself.
But that being said, we onboard them, we take them under our wing and we provide them with a reserve study. And almost always they're underfunded because they spent 20 years ignoring the very real deterioration that was happening at their property. Property was aging in place, and they were not setting aside adequate reserves. So then it thrust the current ownership group into this position of having to play catch up. So then they're being charged more than their fair share moving forward. It really creates this real kind of hostile, kind of murky kind of environment where they're all neighbors. But Mary Jo was on the board for the last 10 years and she ignored doing a reserve study. And now assessments are going up really rapidly. I would say that is the biggest issue that could happen if associations do not even do a reserve study.
All right, great. How would you recommend us convincing our board to get a reserve study?
We call reserve studies the roadmap to the future. It's relatively easy to work on your operating budget, your daily, weekly, monthly bills. You get those all the time. If your roof sent a bill each month, if your asphalt sent a bill each month, if your carpet sent a bill each month, you may not even need to prepare a reserve study because you'd have the cash on hand. But you need some guidance to help see into the future, to realize how fast things are deteriorating and how many things. Actually, I'm going to show the next chart. You get a list of the components, the projects that are going on at your association, the deterioration that's ongoing. You get an evaluation of reserve fund strength, that classic question, do we have enough? And then we give a recommendation of a funding plan, where to go from here, just like Derek was talking about. We find out what assets they have, what their current status is, and we onboard them and guide them into the future. So that's the purpose of a reserve study, is to help you not get surprised by things that should not be surprising.
Yeah, Robert, I would say that there's lots of benefit and added value to hiring a professional such as our team and getting a reserve study. Robert, would you mind flipping over to that slide that shows the benefits of understanding a client's percent funded and when they're in the strong funding position, 70% and above, what the value to their home increases by?
Oh, the value of the home?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. So we did a study in-house and we looked at a number of different associations and we're able to determine that if a client is 70% funded and above, they have enough cash flow to take care of projects on time, avoid deferred maintenance, avoid special assessments, and thus the per square foot basis of those individual homes is 12% more than homes that are poorly funded.
Curb appeal is real.
Yep. And so this is really a benefit of getting real-time information, funding reserves appropriately, and taking care of your projects when they come due and having the cash to actually do them.
Yeah, it hopefully shouldn't be the concern, oh, the reserve study is going to cost X amount of dollars, or, oh, if we get a reserve study, our monthly assessments might go up. It should be, well, let's say worst case, we talk about a recommendation where we're going to recommend a $50 increase in their monthly assessments. If they follow that, they're going to, let's just use easy numbers, their home values are going to increase 10%. And on a $500,000 condo, that's 50 grand. Derek, would you spend $50 a month to make 50 grand?
Every single day.
Yeah.
I would do it.
That's exactly what we're talking about here. It's the guidance that helps you thrive.
All right, fantastic. Next question. Do reserve studies for co-ops and HOAs differ?
Derek?
Not in my experience. A number of co-ops are set up in different ways. But in general, you see the same type of components and assets at a co-op as you would see at an HOA. So we're looking at the same type of items, the same price points per unit, square footage or linear footage, same life cycles as well. So in general, the reserve studies do not differ between a co-op and an HOA.
Yeah. The reserve study itself, the structure of it, you're still going to get the same 3 results. The component list, which I chose to show on screen here, is going to be different depending on if it's a HOA with no residential assets or a condo. I think we have a condo here. Got roofing, painting, asphalt. If it's a homeowners association where all they have is a tot lot and a swimming pool, obviously the component list is going to be different. But structurally, the reserve study is the same thing. I hope that this was valuable to you. If you still have questions, no worries. We're always here to help. If you're an existing client, contact your project manager. If you want to avoid special assessments and deferred maintenance, visit reservestudy.com and get a free proposal for your association now, in time for your next board meeting.